Hey guys, Dark Humility here with yet another mini guide and demo on the Season 10 closed beta. Towards the end, of course, where we have a beautiful Vengeance Paladin. I don't even know if I've ever made a mini guide and demo on this build. However, the last buff they did in the closed beta to this build is actually kind of insane. This is a very strong character now, very flashy, very powerful, and obviously since it does all elements of damage, you could pretty much run it in whatever map you want, which is particularly appealing. And obviously that also means that it's easy to start out with the skill as well, because it can do that. That being said, without high density, it doesn't chain all that well, so you do need to make sure the monsters are as clumped up as they can possibly be. But at any rate, we have here our strong ability. We are going to go over the stats, skills, gear, and then of course we're going to demo Vengeance in Season 10. This is a really strong skill now in Season 10. So unless of course they nerf it at the last second when they actually launch the game, this is going to be some fun stuff. Before this, Vengeance, of course, they've always been trying to update it, improve it a bit, but it never quite made it into feeling more than a little bit clunky. So now, this skill is competing with other high AoE abilities like Sacrifice just fine. Let's go over the stats, though. We've got enough strength to wear our gear and enough dex to get max block. AR helps, but with maximum conviction or honor self, and also conviction being a synergy for Vengeance, you don't really have to worry about attack rating all that much because of it reducing all the monsters' defense. So we should be able to hit just fine without too much AR, so don't go overboard. And then put the rest into life. Res can be important for survivability. And of course, I wouldn't say it's super essential though because of how strong the ability is, but on hardcore, definitely make sure you have max res. You can get that through corruptions and a bunch of other ways. However, by sacrificing maybe some charms of some kind to do it, but no matter what you decide to do, make sure, of course, that you're satisfied with the survivability of the build. Alright. And of course, elemental pierce of all kinds, actually, lightning, cold, and fire help this build. However, typically, if you can, focus on one element to kind of specialize in, and then make that like your main element, and then put a whole bunch of flat damage small charms down here to basically key off of the element. So flat damage elemental is the strongest thing for Vengeance, period. Facets obviously will help, negative res, percent damage will help as well. But the flat damage small terms, the flat damage even on things like the facets obviously, and obviously on things like famine and other similar items like Azarath, which give bonus added flat elemental damage. Or things like Gimmer Shred also does it. You can make Famine, of course, and you can make Zenith as well, and Zenith also does it. So Zenith would be like a two-handed option, which can now be made in swords in Season 10 that you could use with Holy Sword, and you could also do that as well. That has Salvation Ore, which gives you more flat damage to all elements as well, and also gives you better res. So there are some different advantages with different weapons and whatnot, but in general, you want really good flat damage. I like Famine because I can make it in a phase blade, so it's fast. I don't have to worry about my attack speed breakpoints that much. Of course, also you get negative enemy res to all three, and you get all damage, added damage to each as well. Oh, I forgot to mention like Barner's Star. You know, that's another one. Definitely a bunch of weapons that have that can be very good for Vengeance. There's the Sankakur's Fall Shield as well, which is like pretty basic stuff. If you want to do Vengeance early game, that shield drops all the time. It feels like a joke. You could definitely just slap that on and then start doing lots of damage with it as well. So that's always cool. Anyway, life for kill and mana for kill are your main forms of sustain, so make sure to have that. Make sure you have enough attack speed to hit the max attack speed frames so it's not clunky as crap. FHR isn't as important because you have max block and you have the best block frames in the game as a Paladin. Okay, let's go over skills. You're going to want to max Joust so that you can jump between packs as fast as possible. As a matter of fact, I actually prefer this setup where you even use Alma Negra so that you can get the cooldown even lower. So you're just constantly jumping between packs and blowing them up with vengeance. Now, Alma Negra doesn't have a lot of added damage or anything like Sankakur's Fall or like Tiamat's Rebuke. However, you don't need it. You do enough damage typically as it is, especially if you get enough flat damage. Small turns, particularly of fire damage, which is really good, minimum and maximum damage, you'll do just fine. So if you max Joust and you get Alma Negra and you do this and you chain it, it's actually very strong. That being said, lots of weapon and shield options on the Paladin, or even just weapon if you're using Zenith, which is a brand new option. That's really good for parties. Salvation and Conviction on a Paladin is pretty insane. Could imagine that being pretty sick. So definitely take into your options. Zenith, that rune word that used to only be made in bows, definitely very possible and very strong here. First, you put 1 point into Holy Shield. Use Charge to get around. You max out Conviction, which is a synergy for Vengeance, believe it or not. Definitely max that one out and prioritize it, and then max out the ones where most of your flat damage already is, so that the facets that you put in the rest of the gear have the most impact. That being said, I have a lot of fire damage small terms, so I made sure I maxed out Holy Fire. And then my second largest source of flat damage is Lightning, so I maxed that out. You don't have enough points really for Holy Freeze unless you want to sacrifice Joust, but then it's going to be really clunky because you're not going to be able to get around very well with Vengeance, and it's going to suck. Alright, and that's pretty much it there. Now the Mercenary, this is a pretty decked out Mercenary. I think it's probably way overkill. Unless you're having attack speed problems and you need Fanaticism on the Mercenary, you can go Pus Spitter, of course, but what really survives in Season 10 is going to be a Rapture Mercenary. Jumping straight into the packs and having him cast Lower Resist and Fissure, and having Innocence proc those as well with the Blade Shield, in addition to Taunt, is going to make this build clump up monsters and chain them like crazy. That Taunt will help you chain the monsters with Vengeance, and since the chain length has been greatly extended, you'll see what I mean. That's just really, really helpful stuff. And life, DR, and survivability on the rest of the Mercenary. Now, Lower Resist plus this level of Conviction plus all of this other Cold Pierce, and then of course all this flat LE damage is really good. Let's go to my gear though. So I already talked about a lot of weapon options. I think Famine is solid though for the attack speed, and of course for the fact that it has its damages and whatnot. Azarath is also a very common choice, also in a Phase Blade. You have Alma Negra for that Joust cooldown reduction, and then of course I stuck Umbrins in it because my res sucks. But you could do a lot of different things. You could use the other flat damage shields for even more devastating damage, and that could be a lot better for like group mapping, for instance. Ormus gonna get some fire damage here, some flat damage percent and a negative fire. I don't recommend using Corpseborn, but you can, because Corpseborn, the skellies will kind of spread out the monsters as you move, and that will affect chaining with it. Not the best, but Corpseborn is a solid choice because of the flat fire damage on it. There are of course some other very good choices as well. You could just use Arcanes, or you could just use Shaft Stop if you don't want to die all the time, which will make you tankier. Kira's, I think, is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, it's kind of like Famine. You get all of the negative reses, and you have CBF, and you have all res. I think Kira's probably should be used, and then you just put in whatever facets you're trying to specialize damage-wise in. And then this helps out my attack speed. I needed to get this for attack. I think I lose a frame if I take this off. Yeah, I do. Okay. CTA and Lilith. Of course, if you have the attack speed elsewhere, you can do Maras, you can do a lot of different things. Of course, what's really good about High Lords is it also gives 1 to 300 flat LE damage. So once again, items with that are going to increase their damage on Vengeance in general. Of course, I also have SOJ with lightning damage. This is why I actually prioritize Holy Shock as the second synergy, because I have a decent amount of it. Merman's Sprocket also gives some flat cold damage. Very nice. You could also use Inferno Stride, of course, for the flat fire damage, which could also give you Blaze, but you don't need more movement speed anyway. So the movement speed is really good just for moving around and giving you flat cold damage. You got the LPK off the Wisp Projector, and of course you got MPK here. So I got some pretty good sustain. These are more plus skills. It's going to help Vengeance be a lot stronger. And then some DR. Obviously, there's more like lightning damage on T-Gods and things like that if you really want to go ham, but probably not needed. There's always going to be flat LA damage on a lot of different pieces of gear, but if you look for it, that's what's going to help. Drax, some sustain with the life per kill. Very solid stuff. And then we have flat LA damage here, and then we have P-Combs here. Now, you might ask, why do I have P-Combs and not just all flat LA damage? Well, that's a good question. So there's a chance to chain down here. It says 93%. It maxes out at 95 now. You want that to be as high as possible. So you want exactly enough P-Combs to max out your chance to chain, and then to fill out the rest of the inventory with small charms. Or large charms, flat damage. You can even get flat damage grand charms. Something like that will do the job. Alright. Let's do it. Let's crush it. Let's demo this awesome build. Show you guys what he's capable of. I have no idea what time that's going to be for you guys. It's probably going to be when you're supposed to be sleeping. Tomorrow. If I had to guess. Which I'll guess for you. You know, I'll guess for you. Let's get that density up on the Blood Moon a bit. Alright. And smash it. Look at that. Woo! Woo, man. That chains like no other. This is why density, this is another build that feeds off of density, kind of similar to Sacrifice on a Paladin. But it does use different gear though than in the Sacrifice Paladins. You'll notice though that the effectiveness of Vengeance drops very precipitously though, based on how clumped up the monsters are. This is why Ferocity on the Mercenary is actually kind of big. See, he starts gathering them together. So like when density is bad, this build actually suffers more than a build like Sacrifice where Corpse Explosion has more range. However, this build blows up monsters in a bigger range when they are clumped together than Sacrifice. So that's actually kind of an interesting thing to note. You can get around with charge, of course, if you need to. Just joust in and use Vengeance. Bam, bam, bam. Remember, there's a lot of weapon and shield options I talked about. It's just a lot of options in general. Some options like the helm probably should try to use that. Kira's stonks definitely up this next season. So this is the first time I've ever seen Vengeance in a state where it doesn't actually look or feel clunky. They always keep buffing it, and I'd be like, yeah, it's getting better, but now it's like, oh, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. This is not bad. This is easily one of my favorite builds displayed here so far. It looks great. Thank you, Sniffles the Dog, for a brand new member of Xana's Attack Squad that goes to the machine, the Arcane Disciples. Tier 1, and yes, you're right, Sir Galahad. I really enjoy this. This is fun. It's got a lot of power and potential. Let's see if I can get a better map here for showcasing his awesome power outside the cow level. And of course, you can see the sheet damage. I mean, it's high. But ability to chain, though, is actually really insane. And, yeah. Now, this isn't really the tankiest build in the universe, but, you know, I could tank up more, and I could still have plenty of damage, most likely. You notice, though, it's kind of bleh, you know, and there's not a lot of density. But when there is, the whole screen blows up. It's pretty sick. Might try vengeance instead of sacrifice. Bro, do it. Do it. Flat elemental damage small terms, or just flat elemental damage in general, never looks so good, right, chat? It's a build that, you know, actually uses a lot of these things. Doesn't use GCs or percent LCs for its primary damage. Except for the chaining element, of course, so you do want plus skills. And if you get enough plus skill corruptions, I imagine you can pretty much almost go for a full inventory of small terms. Look at that, so devastating. That's so cool, honestly. Such a cool ability. So cool. Anyway, from DH's Mad Lab to you guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this mini guide and demo. Vengeance Paladin never looked so good. Let's get it in Season 10, guys, October 25th. Hopefully you guys are excited to play this build and others. And of course, I'll see you guys on the 23rd with the tier list video and tier list infographic video as well. So you guys can learn all you can that I have learned, and from all the 100 hours of testing I've done during the beta to do what you can to smash it. Let's get it, though. And smash it in Season 10, and see you then. Crush it, chat. Crush it, YouTube. Let's get it.